Welcome to the Innate Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Loren Sofia, healer of my own fertility and health struggles, mother, functional fertility coach to thousands of women, and owner of Innate Fertility. I believe your body is innately wise, and so is your fertility. Sometimes we just need the tools to unlock it in abundance. I'm honored to guide you through each episode where we'll cover not just fertility, but how to rediscover the innate wisdom of your body, restore your connection with your physiology, bioenergetics, and metabolism, and get back in touch with Mother Nature and ancestral traditions. I'm so excited about today's episode because not only am I talking to my friend Tiffany at Toxin Free Tiffany on Instagram, she's so sweet, genuine, and real, but we're talking about going non-toxic. Now, this isn't just your typical discussion about non-toxic products and such. Of course, we definitely cover that. However, what I think you'll find different and hopefully enjoyable about our conversation is that we get real about how to actually do this without going insane. Because literally everything is toxic if you've asked anyone. And also, no one talks about the financial implications or relationship aspects much about going non-toxic either. And honestly, a lot of non-toxic influencers are toxic. Let's be real. So, reducing toxins and optimizing your detox pathways is a cornerstone of optimizing your fertility, preparing for pregnancy, and also surviving the huge hormonal shift postpartum, in my opinion. Doing this may also save you from pregnancy complications related to stagnant detox. So toxins and detoxing, they're very important. Especially while I was on birth control too, my detox pathways were super taxed, and supporting them is something that I worked on not only to get super fertile, but to also keep myself healthy during pregnancy because also of my mother's history with preeclampsia. I wanted to put in extra work to make sure my detox pathways were firing on all cylinders so that I could avoid it myself as much as possible during my pregnancy. So detox is also one of the key things I teach my clients and course students and how to do it right. Because a lot of people, will tell you to take this supplement and that supplement and, do this and that. But there's actually a really important and very specific order that detox should be taking place if you're pushing detox. And I also teach you how to do this without losing your mind because I think there's a ton of fear mongering too around toxins in the wellness space. And I really want to simplify it as much as possible to make it super easy for you. And I think there are a lot of other ways to approach it, especially in a more constructive way rather than this is toxic, you should be scared and remove it from your body. So buckle up and enjoy the episode. We're going into all these specific things, and I really hope you enjoy hearing from Tiffany. All right. Well, I'm so excited today to welcome Tiffany from Toxin Free Tiffany, as she's known as on Instagram. Welcome, Tiffany, to the Innate Wisdom Podcast.
Hi, Loren. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. I so appreciate your presence and your energy, in the what can be sometimes like an overwhelming place that is social media. So I love what you have to say, and I'm super excited about our conversation today.
Well, the feeling is mutual, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to start by asking you, what is your story and what led you to doing sort of the work you do today or showing up the way you do today?
Motherhood in a nutshell. So I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I really thought I had a decent grip on health and wellness. I knew I wasn't the best, but toward the end of my pregnancy, I started going down the CDC childhood schedule. And for some reason, this was it took so much of my time. It took so much of my intellectual energy, and I really was pouring over it. And it's fun. It's not haha funny to me, but it's interesting to me because I have had events in my life where it could have and should have been a wake-up call for me. But I think, and I know your listeners understand about the nervous system and stuff. I think for so much of my life, I was just in survival mode. I was comfortable with my status quo with my health, and I just was holding it all together in a sense. So even if I had a healing crisis or I lost a family member to cancer before becoming a mother, it wasn't enough to stop me in my tracks and to make me start reading everything. And, I had a hospital birth planned, which I did go through with. I had Pitocin, I had the epidural, my daughter, there was a vacuum involved. There was continuous fetal monitoring involved where she had the screw in her head, so I went into birth very mainstream. And in the weeks that followed her birth, I started reading about ingredients and everything. Of course, you don't want to use the laundry detergent that's going to irritate your baby's skin. And it just felt like I was drinking from a fire hose in terms of things that could hurt my baby. And there were a few interesting things. Like during my pregnancy, I had this very strange intuitive feeling to stop painting my nails. And I think my toes had been painted continuously for about 10 years. I was the nail painting girl. But it was just this very strong feeling to stop painting my nails. And so I did. I thought, okay, I'm going to stop. And then of course, later only to be confirmed that the chemicals are detrimental, especially to fertility. So just some really interesting moments like that. So I guess that kicked off, my passion for it. And then, finding out, of course, people's lives who have been changed for the worse because of these chemicals that are allowed in our personal care products, food, medical products. It kind of lit a fire in me. I think I had some passionate energy that probably manifested itself in like righteous anger for a while. Since then, I've cooled down a bit, but I think I brought that righteous anger to Instagram one day when I was not trying to gain a big following. I had 1,000 followers who were friends and family who probably all thought that I had lost my mind. And I just, started posting things like, I think this is really interesting. I think this is very weird. I think this is uncanny. I think, why is it like this? And just asking questions that don't have answers. So yeah, that's how, and then of course, larger accounts who I didn't even know of started resharing my stuff. And I just thought, oh no, everyone can see my last name. I have to change my Instagram. It was all kind of really fast, but yeah, just motherhood and this kind of mama bear instinct that came out, for my baby and for other people's babies, and a protective instinct for mamas and for people not to experience certain things that I've experienced as well.
I think that's beautiful. And I think certainly, you're not alone in sort of like motherhood being the point of time where things just light a fire,
Yes.
And yeah, I love that you not only are so passionate about the topics, but also helping share the information so that others can benefit and, make decisions that are right for them too. And so just helping other mothers. And I think that's beautiful too.
Yes. I mean, we hear a lot about like mom shaming and, oh, it's so competitive and this and that. And I just think it's a jungle out there, and to share information in a way that's just empowering, informative, loving. It's what I wanted, right when I first had my daughter. So I hope to be adding some good energy out into the world for sure.
Yes, I can feel it for sure.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, on that note, you're all about reducing toxins in your environment, your life. And if anyone were to go to your page, they would realize that it's both about literally and metaphorically reducing toxins. So
Yes.
ideas and messages. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing what are some of the primary toxins that we're exposed to on a daily basis, both literally and metaphorically, especially ones that we might not even realize that we're being exposed to, that we might want to be aware of.
For me, interestingly, I'll start, I guess I can only speak to my experience, but the most toxic thing in my life that I've had to heal from and constantly be vigilant about is my own stress and my own responses to things, including being stressed about what is in the stuff in my house. I mean, it's hard because some people can't control how much stress they have in their life, their job or whatever. But I do feel like that is something that once I got that peace, my health started to improve even more. And my life improved, my outlook improved. Also, that bleeds into healthy boundaries and healthy relationships with people, just kind of not wanting to save people, not wanting to control people, but letting people, make their own choices and not feeling stressed out about others' choices in their lives. During the pandemic, there were so many people messaging me utterly distraught. I mean, losing sleep, nauseous, giving themselves like digestive problems because they had family members who were not taking certain health advice. And I had to keep telling people there's no article or podcast or anything that you can send people that's going to change their mind. And you are hurting yourself by wanting to control and by stressing out about it. So that's hard, I think for people in the holistic world, because we want people to experience the abundance and the peace and the health that comes with a conscious life. But that for me has been pretty profound. And then, of course, I started with anything that touches, that goes into my body, like food and water and air as well, with, air purifiers in the home. And then anything that touches my body in terms of lotions, soaps, etc. Just getting familiar with different brands as well as different ingredients. It can feel very overwhelming. And I do think that people, especially moms, they find out about all the junk that's in our products, especially in the US, and they want to go throw things away and start from scratch and start over. And it's, again, like a very high stress response. And so what I've tried to encourage people to do, because they come to my page and they're like, what's the best sunscreen? What's the best this? Well, a really wonderful sunscreen might cost $40. A kind of decent sunscreen that's a mineral sunscreen that might have some pore cloggers and might not be the best, but it's benzene free, it might cost $7. So to have people stressing so horribly over, oh my gosh, I'm giving my children cancer if I cannot get this $40 sunscreen, like that's what I don't want for people in the space. I want peace. I want empowerment. I want knowledge. So I think, and it does affect people's finances, which can be a huge stress on marriages and in homes. So anyway, the stress component is so interwoven that it's like if you're detoxifying your home and you're buying a mold testing kit and you're getting a water purifier because you've read that chlorine contributes to cancer and bladder cancer and all the rest, just remember to breathe. Remember it's a journey. Remember not to stress out. It's a lot of different components that we have to be mindful of, and we have to check in with ourselves, remind ourselves that we're safe, that life is a journey. The perfection is a mirage. It's an illusion, and it's okay. Start where you are, use what you have, and that's okay too. So that's hopefully the message that I send on my platform.
I love that message. I think especially in the wellness space, it's so easy to feel like you're not doing enough, that everything is basically toxic and out to get you. And, that just continuing to use certain things will hurt you, and, you lose sleep over it. And then it's almost like the pursuit of wellness becomes unhealthy, which is the opposite effect that, you would typically think it would have, but it becomes a more dysregulated almost reaction, and our pursuit creates more dysregulation. So I feel like that's a really important message to remember. And I love that you share that, because I think especially in my world, which is so fertility focused, women are so hard on themselves, and they think like, oh, my toothpaste is the reason why I'm not pregnant yet, or, or they will be having fear around eating conventional foods during pregnancy because they're scared to consume the microplastics that might be in it or something.
Right.
And I think when we go to those places, I think what Tiffany said, just remember that you have to have compassion for yourself, and also trust in, whatever your spirituality is, the universe, God, you're not alone, free falling, and that there is a sort of path as well in regards to our journeys, and that there is some kind of protection to offer that we're receiving. And we kind of have to trust in that too. And focusing on the things that you can control, because you can't control everything. And the man upstairs makes the decisions ultimately.
I
But
agree.
I do love that you can appreciate how much peace and abundance, a less toxic life can bring,
Yes.
somebody. And so I think that that balance is really, really difficult to achieve. So for anyone that's like spiraling out there, I hope that this conversation maybe helps bring you towards a more centered space.
Yes.
Because there are so many things that we can choose to spend our time and energy on, but don't forget to spend the time and energy on things that are really, really important too, like your family and relationships and your mental health too. And thanks for sharing that too. I love the perfection is an illusion also. Many women are type A, many of you listening. And so I think that, while it's very admirable and there is a lot of benefit to, having this proactive energy and proactive mindset, just know that perfection is often, there are so many sayings about perfection too. I can't remember them all right now, but there are some really good ones. And I think one of the most important ones is progress, not perfection. Because if you try to achieve perfection, you're going to go insane because it's not achievable. But progress for what it means for you on your journey and your individual circumstances, because like you said, Tiffany, that $40 sunscreen might just not be in reach. But maybe
Right.
after you finish that bottle of, I don't want to say a specific brand, but conventional sunscreen, you can go for an affordable mineral one, and that would be great.
Yes.
And so there are different ways to gauge improvement for yourself.
I absolutely agree. And that is something that I do tell people, when you want to replace items and level up, please don't go through your whole house and throw out all of the, Clorox and Fabuloso and Pantene and just chuck it all at once and go spend hundreds of dollars replacing everything, especially like, cosmetics can be such an expensive one as well. And it can make you feel bankrupted and overwhelmed and like you're just this Tasmanian devil with this energy, this very frantic energy of like, if I don't do this right now, and it's really not like that. And it's, small steps, small bites over time that add up to a big difference. And you start getting used to, the more ingredients you read and you start to recognize them. And it's a journey, and it's over time, you'll be able to pick something up and go, I still do it with my husband. He's like, oh, is this a good thing? And I'm like, babe, is this a joke? Like, where's the hidden camera? But of course he trusts me to buy the stuff. So over time you get used to the ingredients and you know which ones are the big no-nos and which ones are kind of, and it takes time.
Yeah. Have patience with yourself too. Definitely takes time to become familiar also with what to look out for and what you can sort of have a lot of wiggle room. And
Yes,
there's a lot of gray, so
there is.
instead of black and white.
And even within a home, I want to say there's grace. So as much as I'm like, have grace with yourself, and I'm joking about it, oh, my husband doesn't even know. But it is funny because a lot of women message me like, oh, my husband is so not on board. He doesn't understand. He doesn't care. He said he feels fine using these conventional products. And I'm just like, let him. You're not his mother. He is a grown up. And my husband, and I think it's so not on brand, but I think it's important to show the nuance to say that my husband loves Pantene shampoo. He uses it. I have no idea what it's doing to his sperm count. He impregnated me a lot of times, so I think it's okay. And he loves Tide. He's not going to stop using Tide or Gain. And we've had a conversation about it. And I said, hey, I will fold your laundry for you. I will do your laundry lovingly with devotion if you just use a different, use my detergent. And he's like, babe, I don't want you to help me. I want to use my toxic detergent. And it's just this funny thing of life that I'm sure it seems hypocritical that, toxin free Tiffany has Tide in her house, but it's just, there is nuance in every marriage and every family. You have to do what works for the people in the house. Of course, I make the decisions for myself and my daughters. He's super cool with that. He loves that for us. And he's incredibly supportive. But for himself, he likes the fragrance, and he is a 41-year-old man, and I'm not going to begrudge him the things that he likes. So it's just, life is funny that way sometimes.
I think that's a really, thank you for sharing that too, by the way, because it can, I think it just shows how not simple too, as it may seem, and that the right answer may not necessarily be what you think it is. And I think in any relationship, in any marriage, in any partnership, especially in regards to fertility too, that comes up a lot. And, you have to figure out what you and your partner are willing to do and not willing to do, and what you will support each other on as well. And this just doesn't apply to toxins. This applies to just
so much.
Yes. And so, I think that's a beautiful way of just highlighting that. Again, perfect. You might think that perfect means completely toxin free out of the house, but for your situation, toxin free means many compromises as well. And that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
It's just about doing your best in your situation.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned a couple things like detergent and shampoo and cosmetics. So those kinds of categories of things, are there any others that you would consider important to kind of be aware of on a daily basis, or in life?
I think I kind of start with anything, like I said, like food that you consume, water that you consume, then things that touch your body, and then things that you're going to touch, like cleaners. So they're not, if you're pouring it on your floor, it's not necessarily touching your body, but it's going to touch the bottoms of your feet. You're going to smell it. Beyond that, I'm not the person who can afford a several $1,000 green mattress, for example. There are people who think that is something, A, that they can afford, and B, that they are going to invest in. Now, do I see the benefit of, an organic cotton mattress? I totally do. But if things like this are out of people's reach, I'm the kind of person who I'll buy an organic cotton mattress topper, or I'll let the mattress kind of air out in a room for a little while if it's new, for a few days or a week. And then I'll top it with an organic cotton mattress topper. And I'll just think like, okay, this is my best, for this situation. So there are also car seat companies that do non-toxic, wool blend. The fabric is like a wool blend on the car seat. So it's 2023 is a wonderful time to be alive in terms of the non-toxic options. And you can really go big if you want. Another thing that's an easier, cheaper thing is glass Tupperware, not using a lot of plastic for the endocrine disruption and stuff. Whenever something says BPA-free plastic, I'm of the mind that it's mostly marketing. If it's plastic, I just don't like it. So I do avoid plastic, whatever, they like marketing things they've slapped on it. I'm still going to get the glass Tupperware. So there are still things that are affordable ways that you can, quote, detoxify your home. So yeah, and then even things like air purifiers. I know that it feels to me like sometimes there are the favorite brand of all the influencers. Maybe this brand has the best affiliate program, I don't know. And then it's an expensive one. And so you're just like, man, can I find another air purifier that's high quality, but that's not at this price point? And yes, so that's the beauty of this lifestyle too, is like, if your 10 favorite influencers are all telling you to get the same, air purifier, you can still research on your own and find a really good air purifier that fits your budget and that is going to purify the air in your home. And you can fill it with plants as well. Some living plants are good air purifiers. So those are some things to think of, but there are different price points, so a lot of people say that a non-toxic lifestyle is out of reach for a lot of people, but there's a lot of wiggle room, like you said. For me, like the mattress thing, and then to buy an organic cotton mattress topper, and then for something like an air purifier, instead of buying the really most expensive one that's touted by all the influencers, just to kind of do your own research, strike out on your own. And it's okay if you buy one that's a brand that you haven't seen, promoted on Instagram, but if it's within your price point and you researched the filtration system, whatever it is inside, and you're like, this is a really good one actually, and you've bought a few live plants to stick around your house, that's a good way to detoxify the air in your home. And you don't have to feel like, oh man, I didn't get the fancy one that everyone is saying to buy. Like there's no shame in not getting the top of the line, most expensive everything all the time.
Oh, totally. And it's, the wellness industry is an industry. So I think that's really
Yes.
important to remember as well. While there are good intentions behind it, you know, at the end of the day, a company that creates a device is going to have to make money. And there are a bunch of ones that also take advantage of a specific trend or a specific health issue. So I think it's really important to kind of navigate with this sort of like quest for a cleaner, quote unquote, life with that kind of discernment that you mentioned, because there are very affordable alternatives like plants, for example. I
Yes.
don't have a air purifier in my office. One day I will, but I've chosen to have plants like you suggested. Exactly.
It's perfect.
Yeah, and they're more aesthetically, for me, they also bring me other pleasures, like the way that
Mm.
they look and, the kind of having a piece of nature inside. So they help me stay grounded in a sense. So I think that that's beautiful. And I think the other piece of what you were saying too is that you don't have to boil the ocean all at once. It's about prioritizing what you want to invest in as well. So if you deem, that you want this water filter and you're having to choose between that and like a mattress, for example, what is going to work for you the best? Financially make sense. What do you feel like you utilize more? What's most important to you? And that can be a hard thing to navigate too, but it's not necessarily about having all of the things, but prioritizing where you invest as well. If you do have, funds to play around with or less funds to play around with. I think we forget that even those of us that have been sort of in this wellness space for a while, it can be easy to see the shiny new bright object and get distracted as well. So,
For sure.
well, Tiffany, one of the things that I also really appreciate about your page and what you share is your openness about your pregnancy losses. And I would love to just dive into this topic if you are comfortable. And yeah, and to see if there were any sort of realizations or changes that you made in regards to toxins or anything else that supported you in getting pregnant with your second.
Lots of changes. My losses came out of nowhere, both of them, which the second one should not have felt like it came out of nowhere, but it did. Because, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning with my first daughter, I wasn't into a holistic lifestyle at all. I was on birth control for over a decade, hormonal, like the pill. I got off of it and I conceived 3 months later, and I had a relatively healthy pregnancy and a relatively straightforward, albeit very medicalized birth. And so I just thought, oh, I'm normal. Like here I am skirting past all of the, all of the stuff. And then we started trying. It took us a while, but I was still breastfeeding. And so I chalked it up to that. We tried for about a year, got pregnant, and I had an early miscarriage within the first trimester. And I was shocked. I miscarried the day we drove out to the beach and took pictures. My sister came with us and we took pictures for our birth announcement. And my daughter was wearing a shirt that said, I have a secret. I'm going to be a big sister. And we got home and I started bleeding.
I'm so
And it just
sorry.
felt like terrible. And we had just that same day, we called my in-laws who are in England. Thank you. We called them from the beach and told them. So the timing was very, just a gut punch. And it just was this awful. And I'm sure anyone who has experienced it can relate that you're just like, oh my God, please no, please. Like the denial of it is just like, I don't want this story. And you had all these hopes and dreams and it's so beautiful. And, so for me, it was and as a person who does have faith, and also as a person who believes that every human life is sacred. It was it was a time for me to lean into my faith. And then over time, I rationalized it and I thought, okay, our bodies are smart. Something happened. I don't know what happened, but something happened. And then we got pregnant the following month. So I didn't even have a cycle. And I got pregnant again. And so, of course, I was just like, oh, phew, I don't have to suffer that long. I don't have to grieve that long, even though that was an unrepeatable human life. And I will forever wonder about who that baby would have been. And then I started taking progesterone prescribed by a gynecologist. And this pregnancy lasted a couple of weeks longer and I miscarried again. And I just thought, oh my God, I was really like stripped away of everything that I had taken for granted about my health, about my fertility, because I really thought I was kind of beating the odds as far as someone who had experienced some health problems, been on birth control for a long time, had a history of alcohol use, and I know a lot of people like that because it's normal life, and I really just thought I would kind of be okay and be able to have the life that I wanted. And here everything was coming crashing down. And at this point, I was already a mother and I had already been speaking out on Instagram about certain ingredients being in injections and, cleaning up your lifestyle and living a healthier lifestyle. So here I was feeling like a fraud, and even though I had long since stopped the alcohol use and had been cleaning up my life, here are these effects, coming years down the line, which is so unfortunate that future me had to pay the price for past me. But I do think a lot of people find themselves in that boat where their past choices catch up with them years later. And that's when I had to reevaluate the fact that I had chosen to have a vegan diet since my oldest was born. And I thought to myself, is this still serving me? I was craving cheese really badly during both pregnancies. And I did blood work with a doctor he's now retired. He was one of the good ones, but he said, oh my gosh, your thyroid is whacked out and you need iodine like right now, like yesterday. You're deficient and you're deficient in a few more things. He said, but the iodine, you need it because your thyroid hormone needs it. And so you're deficient. And then the progesterone was so low because my cholesterol was not there, the healthy fats. So while I had gone vegan after my first daughter was born because I thought it was the healthiest and I thought it was, all the buzzwords, like the least inflammatory, the least mucus forming, like all these things, the cleanest, and living in the South, people are very, a lot of fried food, a lot of bad oils. So I just thought, oh, fruits and vegetables, obviously it's the most healthy. Everyone around me is eating like smoked meats and this and that. And everyone is having these like lifestyle diseases. I'll do the opposite of what everyone around me is doing and I'll be so healthy. And it turned out I needed the fat and I needed the minerals and the fat soluble vitamins. So I changed my diet and started eating eggs every single day. I started eating butter every single day. I got really real about my sleep and how little of it I was getting, and not because of my daughter, but even just things that I think a lot of women do, which is this sleep revenge procrastination of I didn't get any time by myself today, so I'm going to stay up and do XYZ. And for me, I would justify it by doing things that were cool. I got a job working for my friend's company in France, doing translations for her and translating their website and having calls, Zoom calls with the office at 2 a.m. And I was like, man, I feel like I've got something cool going on for me. I'm talking to grownups. I'm using my talents. And I had that buzz, that adrenaline buzz of like, oh, I'm doing something productive. But it was the middle of the night when I really needed to be sleeping. And so looking back after my losses, I was like, oh man, I wasn't nourishing my body. I was not sleeping. I was not allowing my body to do the system maintenance that it needs to do for a third of my life every night while I sleep and rest. And then the stress, of course, the losses were in 2020 when the world was going crazy and I was consuming so much media just like many people, especially in the holistic world. And I was letting my energy be, for lack of a better word, harvested from me by being angry and being afraid. So those were the changes that I made. My diet, managing my social media, managing not what I was just eating, but managing what I was consuming in terms of fear. And then being so strict about my sleep. And then 9 months later, which is so symbolic of, a rebirth, in a sense. And 9 months later, I conceived my second daughter and had a beautiful, healthy pregnancy, and a beautiful home birth. And it was the whole experience was extremely growing, humbling, and at the end, very redemptive. But it was a journey.
Hey everyone, it's Loren. If you're struggling with things like PCOS, endometriosis, cystic acne, painful periods, constipation, and so much more, there's a good chance that your detox pathways need support. And if you're wanting to optimize your fertility for a healthy pregnancy, supporting your detox pathways is going to be something that you need to be focusing on, especially if you've had complications like preeclampsia or cholestasis, for example, in the past, and are trying to avoid them too. And also supporting a less shocking hormone dip in your postpartum as well. I take all the guesswork out of detoxing for you in my course, Conscious Conception. I tell you the exact nutrients you need, supplements you can take, easy swaps you can make, and more in the right order you should be doing them, all to get your detox pathways primed and ready to make your most fertile self. Visit innatefertility.org/get-pregnant for more information. And if you're loving the show, don't forget to leave a review. Now back to the episode. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so sorry for what you had to go through. You are not alone. And I know that so many of the listeners can probably really identify with your story in so many ways. I certainly do. And I just want to kind of highlight a couple things that you shared too, because I think they're really important messages. You have so much wisdom that just comes out so naturally. And I really, I really think that it's just so helpful for other women to hear. So, and I just also want to just highlight how within all of this grief, you still had so much self-awareness. That is just a really difficult thing to kind of stay clear on. Grief can be so heavy and so all-consuming, and it's okay if you have experienced that or are experiencing that now. So this self-awareness, though, is very interesting that it was able to come out during these times, and that reflection process was also able to come out during this time. So I think that is really interesting. Definitely not everyone's experience, but I do think that sometimes the tragedies in our lives maybe are a forcing function for self-awareness or self-reflection, and sort of a catalyst for a new perspective or change. And with that in itself is a bit of a rebirth of a mental rebirth in a sense. And so I think another thing that you said too was really focusing on and honing in on what is right for you. You mentioned you had been on the vegan diet and you thought it was the healthiest for you. And because there was so much out there that says it's healthy and anti-inflammatory. And I think this is another important piece, because you have to discern what is right for you versus what is trendy or right for somebody else. And I think within the wellness space, it's so easy to kind of fall into that trap. Oh, this person looks healthy, I'm going to do what they're doing. And I think that while it's definitely beautiful to look at other people's experiences and take them in, and we can learn from each other, absolutely. But having that internal compass of what is right for me, and will this actually be beneficial for me? And I think you were able to figure that out as well. And I resonated with it so much because I myself was on a vegan diet in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And it wasn't until I was off the diet that I truly realized how incompatible it was for me. I lost my cycle completely. I started developing adult acne. And, if you are familiar with the female cycle, I know you are, Tiffany, but anyone listening, it's really important. It's a biological marker. And that was just completely gone. I had amenorrhea. So the future you paying for past you, I want to navigate this with care because I think that it isn't until we experience hardship that a lot of things change. And like you mentioned that from the beginning of this conversation, how you experienced many different sort of points where you could have listened, but you didn't. But until it happens to you directly, typically you don't have an incentive to change things. And so I think becoming more attuned with those signs can be very helpful. But I also do want to say that it's important to not ruminate or to blame yourself or to become this, oh, it's my fault. This is happening because of me. I should have done this. I should have done that. You know, it's all my fault. I should be a better person. I should be so much shame, regret, all these really negative emotions that can really all consume as well. Those can hinder progress too. So while it's okay to feel shame here and there, it's okay to regret here and there. If you can then shift your perspective and focus on the here and now, I think that is the most productive because you can't change what you can't change. That's all in the past. And, we were talking about that earlier too, how you were mentioning it's not about control or, worrying so much about the things that you can't control because the things that you've done in the past too, they're no longer in your control. They're done. They're written in history.
Right.
And so to not just be the scapegoat of, what's happening and to also, I think that's also part of like not letting yourself become the victim as well, because you are still in power. You are empowered to make positive choices moving forward and things that will benefit you and different choices. So I think those are like the most really profound things that I pulled from your message. And I don't know if you'd have anything else to add, but I really appreciate all that.
It does. Well, you just made me think of this quote that says, forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. And I think it's so important, just like we've been saying, to almost talk to yourself the way that you would talk to a friend, someone maybe who had made a poor decision, or our children. And I know this kind of goes along with your past podcasts about, conscious parenting and healing and stuff. But the way that we reparent ourselves too can help us propel forward into our lives with peace while taking responsibility for things while also not condemning ourselves. So it's that, okay, well, that wasn't great, but just like you said, what's next? Like, where do we go from here? We've made peace with it. We know why it happened. We know what happened. We're in control moving forward, and let's do the next thing that we know is the right thing, or the thing that we've learned. Let's put it into practice and keep our head up and keep going.
I think that's a beautiful reminder, Tiffany, that, it's really important to not only be there for your friends, be there for your children, but to also be there for yourself as well and have compassion for, your past self, however old you were and whatever you knew. For those that maybe are kind of a little bit overwhelmed or maybe trying to figure out where they should start, are there any simple steps that you would recommend that somebody can start taking today to detox the things that we've been talking about, or, to create a sort of less toxin full and more toxin free life?
So yeah, it is going to differ person to person, but I think the intention behind it always has to be from a place of love and being a good steward of your body, and in a place of love for your family, and not from a place of punishing yourself or being this like how we spoke about before, being controlling, controlling everything, because if I do this, that means nothing bad will ever happen to my family. So if it were me doing it today, because like I said, it did feel like drinking from a fire hose, when I first became a mom, and I wanted to just do everything right and my heart was in the right place. But I think writing it down, like creating a vision for it, and writing down your intentions for your health, for your family's health, and a vision for yourself for the future. I see myself having healthy digestion. I see myself enjoying pain-free periods. And what am I going to do in my life to support me getting to this place? I know that this is possible. I know that healing is possible. And what are the small steps that I'm going to take to get there? And kind of seeing it that way, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I've been doing everything wrong for so many years. I have so much to do. I have so much to change. So I think baby steps, write it down, address problem areas first. And then once those things have started to resolve themselves and you feel like you have a firm footing, then to be able to move on to the other parts of your life.
I think that's great advice. And, so what I'm hearing is start small and start on the things that maybe need the most help. So if you have digestive issues or hormonal imbalances, oftentimes they can go together, but, really starting with one thing, one area, and then setting intentions. And I think that's beautiful too, because that can help you really wrap your head around how to actually execute upon what you're trying to do, rather than just knowing that it's this thing that you have to fix and kind of letting your mind spiral around it. Okay, it's my hormones are imbalanced, like getting constant reminders every time you open the cabinet, of cleaning products or something like that. But how are you going to start taking baby steps to get there? So I think that is really, really beautiful. And I think setting intentions are also great, but also I think if you have, and maybe you would agree as well, if you have spirituality as well, you could also ask for guidance on where to begin, ask for guidance on what to change. I think that is also not out of the question. And I don't know if you want to also share anything about that too.
I love that advice. For me, I have a very interesting story about a root canal that was infected. And it was giving me kind of like autoimmune vibes. I was feeling really tired. And this was after my daughter was born. And I knew it was infected without any assessment. And I went to 2 different dentists and neither one would remove it. And I just knew it needed to come out. And I was praying one night and I was like, Lord, I want to live a long, healthy life. And I had developed a lump in my breast on the same side as my root canal, which in my research, I found high correlation and even causal relationships between infected root canals and breast cancer tumors on the same side. And I was really afraid. And I just prayed and I was like, Lord, I have a baby. I want to live a long, healthy life. I want to be here with her. What do I do? How am I going to do this? These dentists keep telling me they're not going to take it out. And I just felt, it wasn't like an audible voice, but it was like a download that was like, you are going to figure it out. You're going to find the person that you need to find to have it removed, and you are going to be fine, but you need to get it out. It was like a fatherly feeling. And I didn't grow up with a really healthy father, so I just knew that it was God and his love. But I did. The next day, I set to work researching. I found the dentist who removed it, showed me how infected it was, and my breast lump went away. And that will forever be one of the most profound experiences of my life. And nobody was there. Nobody else had that profound spiritual impression that I had, that I needed to get this root canal removed. And a lot of people thought that I was nuts, but I stuck with it. And for me at that time, that was my next right thing that I needed to do. That was me putting one foot in front of the other. And then whatever else was in my home to deal with or detoxify, I was going to get to it. But in that moment, my major detoxifying thing was to get this infected dead tooth out of my head. And I did. And just like I felt God say to me that it was going to be okay, it was. So I do think if you're a person of faith, Yeah, lean all the way in, because I do believe there's a supernatural element to this world that I do believe we were created to connect with.
Hmm. I think that's beautiful. And wow, what an amazing testament to, gosh, just listening to that. I think that is pretty miraculous and incredible.
Yeah, looking
Wow.
back, it is.
Hmm. Well, Tiffany, one of my last questions is, what's one thing that you would like to share with the audience that they can start doing today to unlock the innate wisdom of their body? Because this podcast is called the Innate Wisdom Podcast, and I think you've done this so well so far. But is there any last, are there any last little tidbits that you would like to share that people can start doing today?
If you're just starting this journey, if you're at any point on a journey of a more holistic lifestyle or tapping into that innate wisdom, I guess I just want to encourage people that your body is so smart and it is so beautiful and it always wants to heal and it loves you. And as you know, Loren, our bodies do carry an innate wisdom and they love us. They want to protect us always. So I think if someone has an instinct, especially mothers, we have this like supernatural power. If you have an instinct that something is off or something needs attention, to kind of pull at that thread and not be made to feel unqualified or inexperienced, but to lean in and to trust that and to know that, you're the owner of your body, you're the protector of your body, and you're the only one who can hear that deep inner wisdom for it and for your children, I believe. But just, I want to encourage people to listen to that, because that, I think, is the key to so much, to the hormone stuff, to the digestive stuff, to, removing breast implants or root canals or, changing things in your home, prioritizing things, but to kind of lean in and to be like, you know what, people might think I'm kooky, but I keep hearing this in my deep, deep part of myself, and I'm going to listen to it. And it doesn't make you weird or dumb. It makes you an eternal being who is listening to the wisest part of yourself. So definitely listen to it.
Wow. I love that answer, and I couldn't agree more. And the more you can listen to that voice and that gut instinct and that intuition, honestly, the more better off you're going to be, or the better off you're going to be. I think that's the correct grammar, but we're not here for the grammar. So
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Tiffany. I have really, really enjoyed this conversation. Where can the audience, thank you. Where can the audience find you and how can they support you?
Well, I'm really just on Instagram. I'm in this cool season of little kids and homeschooling. So I like to try to put some valuable content out there every once in a while. But as you can hear, I'm so consumed in this beautiful but busy season. But I answer my DMs, and I don't give medical advice, but I do give anecdotes of my own personal journey. If anyone reaches out like, hey, I'm going through this, is this something you have experience with? I have a lot of time for women and moms who just kind of need someone to talk to. So it's my little grassroots, just me on Instagram, but that's where my life is at right now. So you can definitely find me on Instagram, and I'm there checking my DMs whenever I get a second.
Amazing. And it's toxinfree.tiffany.
Correct.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, go check her out. And I just love what you share. And I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I know the rest of the audience has. So thank you again, Tiffany, for sharing your time and wisdom.
Oh my gosh, Loren, this has just been such a wonderful time. I really enjoyed talking to you. I really appreciate you and all that you do and all your work. You're making the world a better place, sister. So keep on keeping on.
Thank you. And so are you. And likewise. We'll talk soon, Tiffany.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Innate Wisdom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and share the podcast with someone who you think might benefit. If you're new here, we can't recommend enough that you take advantage of my free resources, like the Get Pregnant Yesterday checklist, cycle literacy guide, prenatal primer, and sperm booster manual. And if you're trying to conceive now or in the near future, I invite you to join my pregnancy prep e-course, Conscious Conception. Make sure to follow me on Instagram too, at innate_fertility, and consider joining my newsletter to receive exclusive content related to fertility and so much more. A friendly reminder, the content shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be a substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.